I have an important question for you guys. Does anyone here ever feel like Netflix knows you? Yeah, I'm not the only one. The first time I watched Gilmore Girls, I was like, oh my God, thank you, somebody knows me. Someone can see into my soul by recommending the Gilmore Girls. I love this show. And it came to me as a Netflix recommendation. Now, of course, that didn't happen by accident, and I think probably being here in Silicon Valley, most people understand that Netflix has invested really heavily in their matching technology. They've put millions of dollars and many, many years of work into making their recommendation engine what it is today. And guess what? Their work will never be done. They will never have a recommendation algorithm that is complete. I think that's fascinating. They take hundreds of millions of data points in order to match me up with this wonderful show. They've actually even invested further than just their own team. They famously declared the Netflix Prize, which was $1 million prize for anyone who could improve the algorithm by just 10%. That's pretty crazy, and somebody won that, but we'll come back and talk more about that later. So Netflix, they take a ton of data and they give you a recommendation. That in itself is a pretty complex and challenging thing. But in this equation, only I have to like Gilmore Girls. Gilmore Girls doesn't have to like me back, right? Warner Brothers doesn't have to want me specifically as a viewer. That is the challenge of a two-sided marketplace. When you're serving the needs of two users, your matching challenge gets ever more complex. And that's what I get to work on every day with Care.com. We are stewards of not only the families that we serve, but also the caregivers. And guess what? The needs on the caregiving side are just as complex as they are for the family. So while I love this match, and I think it was perfect for me, at Care.com we get to work on a two-sided marketplace, two-sided match. And I'd love to share with you more about what I do day to day in that matching process, but also share some other matching methodologies and challenges that I see all around us. So matching challenges are not just an online thing. They exist in the offline world, they exist online, they're old school, they're new school. Think about organ patients waiting for a donor, or medical residents waiting for a hospital match, or even the entire college admissions process. Now, all of these things, they are matching problems, and they haven't moved entirely online, but they do leverage matching methodologies. And we won't go into the specific algorithms today, but each one has kind of a unique way, or unique ways that they leverage algorithms. I encourage you to check up on that. And certainly here in Silicon Valley, we have matching challenges abound. We have full industries that have popped up around getting people to a great match. Looking for love, a whole industry around that. I can't even keep up with it. Every time I turn around, there's a different app. Looking for a ride. So this is super interesting. Actually, Lyft has an engineering blog where they give you a ton of information about what they're working on, things that they've tried, challenges that they've experienced, and they're really forthcoming with what they've done. So you can learn a ton from reading their engineering blog and others. So when they started out, the matching challenge was relatively straightforward, although I'm sure if anyone here works at Lyft, you'd probably disagree with me because it took probably a ton of work to get there. But they were matching one rider with one driver, right? Take a rider, match them with a driver who is nearby and available. Not that hard, right? Well, the company was not satisfied with just that match and just with the status quo of their business, so they thought, how do we make this service even cheaper for our users? How do we grow our ridership? And so they started to think about how they could add more people to the ride, how they could add more riders into the match. And this is where things, I think, got really interesting with their matching challenge. So this, as you can probably tell, is what precipitated their Lyft Line product when they have multiple riders sharing one driver. At first, they had an algorithm that was serving one additional rider, so 2 riders to 1 driver. And the algorithm that they had came up with 4 different route permutations that then had to declare the winner for and match up the rider and the driver. So that started to go well. Users were responding to it. It was a service that was really taking off. So being Silicon Valley and being an ambitious company, they didn't stop there. They added a 3rd rider and a 4th rider. And as they got to that 4th rider, the algorithm was then catapulted from giving them 4 permutations of a route to 1,700. And so that was their challenge, right? To narrow that down, come up with the optimized match from 1,700 possible route permutations. Now, if that makes any of you feel like you've been watching Westworld for too long to think about how to solve that product challenge with an algorithm, then I'm totally with you. I've been there. I live that, on the regular in the matching world. But don't worry, there are a number of what I would call foundational things that you can think about if you're getting started in matching. Many of you probably already work on matching challenges, or maybe you're interested in getting into it. And so I'd like to spend the rest of the time talking about what I think are 4 key things to think about. Need a drink of water. Okay. Probably unsurprising to all of you, but you will need data in order to match up users. Data can take all sorts of different forms. Of course, you'll have your user data, the data that they give you into their profile. This is the most straightforward kind of data to collect. But you can also look at behavior data. So what the user does and what they tell you is often very different. So my favorite example of this is Match.com. Does anyone follow Match.com's findings that they've released in the media, kind of like OkCupid did as well? Okay, well, a number of years ago, they took a look at their data, and they saw conservative men want to date conservative women. Makes sense. Well, at least according to the dating profile. When they took a look at the user behavior, they saw that the conservative men were actually spending a curious amount of time looking at liberal women's profiles. Now that is a fascinating product challenge right there. I have no idea what they did with it. I have no idea if they put it into the algorithm or if they just decided not to touch that with a 10-foot pole. But I would have loved to be there for that product conversation to think about how you pair the data of what the user does with what the user tells you. Oops. Okay. Triangulation data, what I mean by this is really looking for external data sources. This can be really useful for those of you that work on more nascent products or new businesses that don't yet have scale with your data. You can also look at triangulating data from users that are similar to the user that you're interested in solving for. And then finally, success data. This is often overlooked at the start of a matching project. Your algorithm is not going to teach itself, people. Well, it will eventually, but only if you're giving it success data. So you have to give it the information about when it makes a successful or an unsuccessful match. You have to train it and coach it and coax it until it is matching on its own. And so you need to have the metric of what success actually is. And that's a lot easier said than done in many cases. If you don't own the full fulfillment of your product, if you hand it off to a third party, or if your users decide to take things offline and not complete on your platform, then guess what? You're not going to have that success metric. So what do you do there? You could think about intermediate success metrics or indicators of a good match, or you could align as a company on a different success metric. And that will probably take quite a lot of internal conversation to agree upon something like that. Just a few types of data. There's many more that could serve your matching needs. Unfortunately, that data could be collecting dust if you do not have a strong data engineering group or a data warehousing group. So think of it as a sort of hierarchy of needs, the pyramid about needing food and shelter before you can have self-actualization. The same could be said for data. Okay, first you need the data, you have to capture it. But if you don't store it in the right way, if you don't structure it in the right way that makes it consumable for an algorithm, it's just going to be collecting dust, and maybe your dear data analyst will be able to get some insights for you, but you won't be able to use it in your matching methodology. So having a strong data engineering team, data warehousing team is key. Okay, this brings me to my next point, thought partnership. So we've covered the science of matching, and now we'll move on to the art. Thought partnership is a key part of being a product manager, right? You have to have relationships with all of the different groups in your company, and you have to engage them and get thought partnership from all of them in order to arrive at a good product solution. So a couple examples here, and who you need to partner with will vary greatly by your product and what you're trying to achieve. But a couple of examples. Your business analytics partner can do a lot to help you keep grounded in sound methodologies and keep you honest if you're trying to extract a takeaway from some data that's not actually true. They can keep you honest there. And engineering can help you think about building an algorithm that will scale with your product, because hopefully your product is poised for explosive growth and your algorithm will need to grow with that. They can also help you think about building your algorithm for speed to make sure that you are actually delivering the recommendation to the user as fast as you need to. So the Netflix prize that I told you about before, they did award a winner. It was a team of a few people, and they got their money, but Netflix never implemented the algorithm because the engineering cost to do so was so high. So that just underscores the need for both thought partnership and a strong data engineering foundation, because having a huge fancy algorithm is not always easy to actually implement and scale with your company. User empathy, last puzzle piece. So having a feedback loop with your users to make sure that they agree that the match was successful is hugely important. And Lyft, we'll go back to that example. They've done a great job at this. So they took the time to actually incorporate a feedback loop into their product. And what they were hearing from users was, even though the match that they had in the multi-rider match scenario was getting them to the final destination quickly, they hated backtracking. That was the main takeaway. Please get me to my destination quickly, but do not make me backtrack, and God forbid, don't do it on a highway. So what they found really was that users valued having a direct path more than they did having the fastest path. What a fascinating thing for them to find. And so then their task became, how do we bring that back into our algorithm as a success metric? And they never would have gotten that if they didn't have a feedback loop built into their product, or if they didn't take the time to actually sit down and talk to their customers. Obviously, a lot of art and science goes into matching. I love my job because I get to work on that problem every day. This was my favorite match of all. I was a part of a nanny share for my oldest son. It involved 5 adults, 2 kids, 2 pets, 2 households, and a ton of logistics. And somehow it all came together for a really wonderful match that helped me go back to work and really get my career off the ground. And this is what I keep in the back of my mind when I work at Care.com, is striving towards scaling this kind of match for all of our 25 million members. And I wish that upon all of you too as you work on matching within your own products. Thank you.